Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where guest and I each pick a film related in some shape or form. And hopefully by the end of this episode, you have two films to check out, or should I say, movies, according to director David Fincher, when he talks about some of his films that are just there for thrills. And we are certainly talking about two of those. And joining me is our fearless leader of the SPDM crew. It is Mike Hilty.
uh, Bows, curtsies, what have you. Thank you. How's it going?
I'm going to call you into podcasts like Dwight calls in Jim the garden party.
Very nice. I love it.
There we go.
I would definitely relish in that.
You just keep hopping in and out of the Zoom call, so then I have to keep restarting again.
Brilliant. I will make note of that in the future.
There we go.
Or I'll just turn my camera on and off. That will be an audio only gag that only me and you are going to get a kick out of.
There we go. We are going to be talking about 1997's The Game and 2002's Panic Room. And these are a couple of Fincher's films that don't dig deeper into specific themes and such. These are all for the thrills and the excitement. And boy, are these films a couple of very interesting experiences for sure, especially as we begin with 1997's The Game. A mysterious game invades a man's ordered existence. And this is indeed a conspiracy thriller directed by David Fincher, starring Michael Douglas as Nicholas Van Orton. And we have Deborah Kara Unger, Sean Penn, James Rebhorn, and a few other familiar faces sprinkled throughout this film. And Mike, what are your general thoughts on the game?
This movie's fucked up. It just really is. Uh, upon rewatching it, like a couple of things that kind of stood out a little bit is that, I don't know, I think the biggest thing is that just Michael Douglas, just this was like back in the day when he actually like kind of gave a shit about stuff. So it's kind of a subtle reminder that, man, this guy could really, really act. And in this case, his character, Nicholas, he's just such an asshole. And I don't know, maybe it's because between this and one of the other movies that I had to watch for your YouTube channel, but there's something about the everything that like the rich can just do the just for the hell of it because they're
Yep.
rich. That kind of just leaves me kind of sad a little bit that like, oh, I'm poor, so I don't get to engage in such things as, you know, lively costume parties and games that have like zero meaning in them at all. And
That's to mess
it's
with you.
oh yeah, just it's crazy. Like the ending to this, the first time I saw the ending to this or just this movie in general, it bothered me a lot because it's like what a fucked up thing to do to somebody, like let alone your own brother. But is it like is this supposed to just be something where it's supposed to be a subtle reminder? It's like, hey, you've got a whole other life to live, or hey, there's more to life than what you're currently doing now, so don't waste it. Or is it supposed to be like, yeah, this is just to fuck with you, so to push you over the edge, which both of those things happen, so cool, but literally and figuratively.
Yep. Ethan, my brother, if you're listening to this, I would never want a gift like this. This is not fun to me. This
No.
interests me in 0%. So just know, nor do you have the money, to be perfectly frank. Um, which this is rich people shit.
Oh
This is
yeah.
rich people problems. All the way down. And like, do I wish to be that rich someday where my life becomes so mundane and regimented that I need my brother to set up a whole entire extreme a game of like role playing to completely un- uproot my life and add a little zest to it. Because
Mhm.
this is literally what it is. Your brother pays a bunch of money to zest up your life for a couple days,
Pretty much. Yeah.
which entails completely ruining your life and
Hmm.
making you think that your life is ruined. And everybody's in on it.
Yeah.
Just the wildest thing this film does. And first off, it's Fincher.
Hmm.
It's Fincher between Seven and Fight Club, which that's wild, the context of where this film came out. Because you have Fincher's probably two most famous films, and then bam, you have the game dropped in
It's
between.
right in the middle. Yeah.
And is this his way of like cutting loose and having some fun making a movie in between those two movies? Because if so, Mr. Fincher, man, you're pretty messed up.
This does feel like something Fincher would be like, one for the studio, this one's for me. Because I don't like I looked up some stuff about it, how like this wasn't really like a huge commercial success. And why would it be? Because
No.
there's there's a lot of things that I feel like this movie is trying to say, and it's very surface level, but
Mm.
also, but just the overall like dark themes and things like that that you typically expect from a Fincher film, they're still there. It's just pretty like a pretty blah, I suppose.
What's interesting, so I have a couple of fun facts that I just found on IMDb about this. Fincher actually wanted to make this his first film after Alien 3,
Okay.
but Brad Pitt became available, so they fast tracked 7.
Oh, okay.
So Jodie Foster was originally signed on to play Michael Douglas's sibling, but Foster changed her mind and wanted to appear as Douglas's daughter instead. So they wrote in like Sean Penn made that change. Uh so and apparently Fincher was very opposed to like adding a daughter into the mix with Jodie Foster. They signed on Sean Penn and Foster sued,
Oh,
settled out of court,
and she still went on to star in a Fincher film later on.
which we'll
Okay.
be talking about. Apparently Michael Douglas and Jodie Foster were personal friends too. So he said it in his perspective, it would have been weird for
Yeah.
him to play her father, but there is an 18-year difference. So technically it could have been true, but to be frank, um, that's still not big enough to portray the love interest, I guess. If you think about, real
Wow.
life.
Oh
Real
yeah.
life. Good for you, Michael Douglas. Getting
I,
yourself Catherine Zeta Jones.
like quite a pull for him. Good for
Catherine
him.
Zeta Jones, the hottest thing to come out of Wales since Tom Jones.
Accurate. Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
But so specifically for me, this captures all of those Fincherisms as a filmmaker. And I think that's what elevates this. So, like, if you didn't have Fincher behind the camera, this wouldn't feel so dynamic and intense and paranoid driven. So, like, Fincher elevates whatever's going on in this film because he's a master craftsman and has an incredible eye for visual storytelling and everything. Michael Douglas is amazing and plays this paranoid, uh, fracturing individual whose whole entire structured life experience comes crashing down throughout this film. And I think everybody else does a fine job. Deborah Era Unger, I'm not familiar with her work, except I have seen the movie 13, so I've obviously seen her in that. Um, Apparently she's in Silent Hill, which I have yet to see the original Silent Hill film.
You haven't?
I
Oh
didn't
man.
watch horror movies until at least college. So like that kind of thing just it was not in that window of me watching. So yes, my only experience is the new one, which was
Oh, I'm sorry.
trash,
I'm sorry.
which was trash.
Yeah.
Um, but I love a good character actor, and you have people like James Redporn, who, interestingly enough, was just in Independence Day before this as the head of the CIA. So like I love seeing him pop up and stuff, whether it's, you know, My Cousin Vinny or Real Steel, even. Uh Unfortunately he passed away in when did he pass away? He passed away in 2014, but at 65, that sucks.
Yeah.
But he's a really talented character actor. And like Sean Penn is an extremely talented actor. I don't like him so much as a person. That man seems way too obsessed with powwowing with dictators. And also, I think he has a lot of problems, but he's a really talented actor. And I think he does a really fine job, especially when he pops up throughout the film in moments where he's like paranoid that his brother's in on it against him. But guess what? He's the one in on it against his brother. Um, he initiated this whole thing.
Right.
Um, I do love the narrative elements that he knows he's supposed to be part of a game, but they play it off that that gets canceled, but he doesn't know that the cancellation part's been all part of the game. So from the very moment this film starts, it gives me a very interesting vibe of Total Recall,
Yeah.
where the whole entire movie you're just like, is this recall? Or did he get out of recall? What's going on here? And that kind of paranoid driven thriller is really hard to make work and also not be super frustrating in the
Yeah.
end. I'll admit the ending's a little feels a little bit of a cop out. It's like this has just been a whole shiz jam. Go
Yeah,
back to
but
your life. And he's just like,
what?
what?
Yeah.
And also, how did they know he was going to jump off?
I mean,
And specifically right there.
probably just betting on genetics, maybe, but I I don't know. I don't have a good explanation for that other than that. But I feel like something like this in somebody else's hands would probably veer a little bit more towards like an escape room movie where it
Yeah.
just wouldn't be like a lot
Where
of
it's
the
like solid.
yeah,
It's
well it's
ridiculous and you question the
ex-
validity of anything.
yeah,
Like, still like a fun time, but I
but
get that for
this
sure.
this one like I think the psychological torture of it is just the thing that makes it such like a Fincher thing, just
Yeah.
about like especially with between like I would say from Fight Club until the next movie we're talking about, Panic Room, that's a lot of movies where you're talking a lot about, you know, paranoia, suspicion, conspiracy, just like a lot of those different things. And it's going into a tumultuous time in like US history between things like the Oklahoma City bombing, like the Unabomber, uh heading towards like the Y2K ness and then like 9/11 as well. This is just like a really weird time in American history. So because I feel like this comes out at like the right time to just continue to usher in this era a little bit of paranoia, especially since it's kind of like this is kind of around the time like dawn of the internet when, you
Yeah.
know, that's starting to become, not as prevalent, but like people are starting to realize like, hey, people are watching and people can do some messed up things and plan out all kinds of different things if they really put their minds to it.
I think this is very interesting if this came out in 2026, because this is a time where we're all paranoid, the whole world's falling in around us. And this movie really captures that kind of feeling. And
Well,
what's
not
crazy is the 90s were like, listen to the Matrix, they were peak humanity.
right.
Um, and Fincher's in there scratching underneath the surface, being like, no, things aren't as good as you think they are.
Yeah. No, that's very true. Um, and also just again playing at the, the rich guy angle as well. If this was made in 2026, you know, probably one of the things that Nicholas's character would have to do is like go to the moon. Because yeah, that's just something that rich people would could do.
It's
Yeah.
like rich people do.
Yeah.
Um, there'd be more crypto and AI involved.
Yeah.
So this is very interesting that this takes place. This was came out in the 90s because how this all would come together in a 2026 context would be very different.
Mhm.
And this still feels grounded enough to
Mhm.
feel like, wow, this is really happening to him, despite the fact that we realize eventually that this is all a sham and a bunch of craziness. But no, this is some really impressive work. And Fincher has not made a ton of films. Like he has 99 directorial credits, but also like he made so many music videos.
Mhm.
Um, but his it is Seven, The Game, Fight Club, Panic Room. And then he takes a break and comes back with Zodiac, Benjamin Button, and then takes a little bit of break again and comes back with The Social Network, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, then made House of Cards. And then 2014 rolled around, Gone Girl, took a break, Mindhunter, and then came back, made Mank, The Killer, and throughout that time around there, Love, Death, and Robots. And that's his whole career as a filmmaker.
That's
And now he has Squid Game America, which is his next project,
I still don't know about that, but
and The Adventures of Cliff Booth.
like would would you rank this for like Fincher among like is this middle of the road or is this probably one of his like lower tier ones? Because
I feel like
if you
I feel
count
like
Alien 3, his version of it, not the studio version of it, I don't know, it's kind of hard for me to think it's like, well, it's probably your worst movie, buddy. But that's
this is
still
still at the
that
bottom. Probably
but
with towards the bottom with you have Alien 3 down there. You have this. I guess it depends who you ask, Benjamin Button. Because I know there's some people that really love that movie and others who are just like, this is a Fincher movie. And Mank, probably, which I actually really liked Mank a lot. Also, The Killer was very controversial.
Killer was divisive to say the least.
Yes,
And
very divisive is the correct way of saying that. So like honestly, I
it
guess this
depends.
could potentially be towards the bottom of the middle,
But
but
that still doesn't change the fact that like, hey, if this is David Fincher's bottom, that's still pretty good. And that's a
any filmmaker.
pretty phenomenal
uh,
track record. Especially considering that around this time, Michael Douglas was in a lot of like interesting projects during this time, kind of hopping around different genres. Around this time, you had like The American President, you had, well, The American President, but
I do
like
really
you had
like the American President.
Disclosure around this time, a couple years before that. So I don't know, like, I feel like this movie, if you pair something like this with an earlier work of his, like Wall Street, I feel like this is just trying to scratch the surface and say a lot about rich people and
Mm.
what they ultimately value out of life and just like how being rich just changes everything about the relationships you have, the people you carry around you. And like Sean Penn, you said it earlier, like there were some times where I was like, Sean Penn, I hate you in this. Like I really do because he's just what kind of a brother does this to somebody? I don't know. I don't know. This
Rich people problem.
Rich people
Rich people,
problems, right?
rich people problems
Yeah.
for sure.
Mhm.
And like, if you really look at it, Michael Douglas hasn't had a lot of great roles since this. Like, Traffic was the big one in 2000. And then, like, looking at this, what it took until, like, I know they made Wall Street too. I never watched it. I don't know. Like, 2013's Behind the Candelabra, where he's Liberace, is probably like his most interesting role post Traffic. And then he played Hank Pym, and then the Comiskey Method,
Yeah.
which kind of revitalized things for him. But outside of that, like Michael Douglas hasn't done like a ton of really interesting things in the 21st century. So like The Game and Traffic are some of his like last really interesting roles, except for a select few. But anything else you want to add about this before we jump into Panic Room?
You talked a little bit about the ending and how the ending feels a little bit like a cop out.
Mm.
But at this point, like, I don't know what they could have done to make the ending more effective besides just letting him die. Like to like have the game actually like
Well,
drive him
and
crazy.
that would have been wild if this was a game the whole time, but he winds up dying and really shining a light on like these dangerous, really reckless things that like you're so rich that you have such a little respect for humanity and life.
Yeah, yeah. It
And that would have been dark. Would have been dark for sure.
would have been dark, but I feel like also that would have been three movies in a row potentially where Fincher does something like, whoa, that's you're like approaching M. Night territory with that many like twists and turns. Because between what happens at the end of Seven, what happens like almost at the end of Fight Club, even like even what kind of happens at the end of Alien 3 at the end, like I felt like that was a pretty that was a choice, right?
It
So
was.
um I don't know. I feel like if if he would have like I'm kind of wondering if if that was David Fincher's choice, which it would make sense if that was a David Fincher choice, or if that would have been the studio saying, I don't know. So
Well, this is interesting too because how much does Fincher write? Because he didn't write the game.
yeah.
He didn't write Panic Room. Oh, he doesn't write. So so he's not like a writer director.
Yeah.
These films are written by other people. And like obviously, like case in point, Clint Eastwood's not a writer director, but Clint Eastwood apparently actually runs through every single script he's gonna direct and Clint Eastwood's it.
Mm. Oh,
Um
oh man, these take take a look at this run. So from 1995 for these two writers, we've got The Net, The Game, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, Catwoman.
oh
Oh,
no.
oh, guys. And then they came back and did Terminator Salvation and another movie called Primeval. Okay. Oh,
Interesting.
and then the
Catwoman
Bruce.
not looking great.
Yeah, like I don't know. These are all these are all interesting choices, but I don't know. Like the Net, the Game, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, all different genres, but all kind of trying to say same thing about paranoia and just three
Mm,
different ways from three different directors.
very interesting things. Well, Mike, are you ready to get in that panic room?
Let's do it.
So, Panic Room, a divorced woman and her diabetic daughter take refuge in their newly purchased house's safe room when three men break in, searching for a Missing Fortune. 2002, starring Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart. And our three invaders are Forrest Whitaker, Dwight Yoakam, and Jared Leto. Really working those Fincher films.
Mhm.
But, Mike, what are your general thoughts on Panic Room?
It's so funny how a panic room is supposed to be something that provides like safety
Mhm.
for people, but like at the same time, it's like, are you really safe in a panic room? Because unless you have like an additional escape hatch or something like that, like, aren't you just
Traffic.
screwed? Yeah, aren't you just screwed at that point? And like in this case, like, yeah, not only are you screwed, but like Sarah, she's diabetic, so like what happens if something goes wrong? Oh wait, something does go wrong and something happens. Okay, cool, 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 cool. Um, this is also kind of like an interesting point in Jodie Foster's career as well
Mhm.
because it's I don't know, like 10 years before this, like Silence of the Lambs had come out and she had just won an Oscar and then between between Silence of the Lambs and this, some very interesting choices from Jodie Foster. And this feels like a very interesting choice of movie for her to do. And I'm assuming that one of the reasons why she wanted to do a movie like this is just there's there's a lot of stuff that this is saying thematically about things like over reliance on technology, over reliance on systems that are constructed by the patriarchy, right? So that to me kind of resonates with why Jodie Foster would choose to be in a movie like this because it feels just so very out of left field from some of the things that she's done in the past.
Well, and it's very interesting because like the 90s, like post her winning an Oscar, I'm not familiar with some of these, but like she had Maverick,
Yeah.
which is such an
Yes.
interesting choice. It's a fun one. Contact in 97. But then after this, she had Flight Plan, did Inside Man with Spike Lee, the Brave one. I remember when that came out. And then, she started getting behind the camera with The Beaver, her and Mel Gibson, which I own and is actually a really powerful film. But like, it's very interesting looking at her career um, at this point. But this feels like a film that is elevated by direction and a very strong cast
Yeah.
because, you know, it's on paper, and this is from writer David Koch, who wrote Jurassic Park and Mission Impossible. And, here its concept is simple. You have a mother and daughter trapped in a safe, like in a panic room, trying to get away from these three guys trying to break in because what they want to steal is in it. So generally simple, but there's a lot of character dynamics that are interesting. Fincher does some amazing impossible shots using digital means to explore this house. And that's the thing. This house is basically, it's a character of its own. That cliche, but like it really feels like it. You understand the logic and everything of the setup. Foster and a young Kristen Stewart give some really strong performances, very empathetic. We care. And then you have this trio of robbers who all have very different dynamics, and it's interesting to see how they all play out together.
I think what's interesting to me about the dynamics between these three people, um, I don't know, like I feel like this is different from a lot of other like break-in movies or like
Mm.
robbery movies because all three of these guys they have their own agendas. They all
Yeah,
know something kind of different about
yeah.
this and I think it just feels like a really weird motley crew of guys
Mm.
that you would put together to rob this panic room. But also, I think like Jared Leto's fine in this. He also doesn't last very long, but I think like
His
Dwight,
performance is big and aggressive
yeah,
and in your face. There's not a whole lot of subtlety to it.
yeah,
He's like very obviously the jerk character that's on the edge, but he's not as interesting and dynamic as like Dwight Yoakam's character turns out to be very mysterious and very dangerous.
which also like I like Dwight Yoakam had like I didn't know him as much for an actor compared to his music career,
Well,
but
that's the thing. He is a musician
yeah.
and like dabbled into acting apparently.
Well, he hasn't like I don't think he has like a huge acting resume, but um
His biggest role, 100%, is mhm, in that Sling Blade,
yeah, can't forget
which
about that.
he is a bastard in that movie. And he is in this one too. But like he's really like some of his last few films are Cry Macho with Clint Eastwood and Logan Lucky.
Mhm.
Um, but like he is with that mask on, he just brings a sense of danger. And then Forrest Whitaker was the perfect actor to be this hesitant guy who's very talented and knows his stuff and got him way over his head and wants to try to, you know, for everybody to get out of this alive.
Mhm. I think one of the things that kind of just resonated with me while watching this as well is just how do we define security, especially in a because this comes out in 2002. This is post 9/11 in
Yeah.
essence.
Yep.
So, how do we define security in a world that now makes you feel like you can't be safe anywhere? So,
Absolutely.
I think one of the things that I did appreciate about Fincher kind of deconstructing this a little bit is just how, you know, this is like to take something that like in another one of Fincher's movies when Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Gary Oldman are talking about how structures become shackles, right? And how when we talk about something like security and something like this is meant to keep you safe, but then also what that does for you psychologically when these safety structures do not work.
They
And
fail.
and a lot of times they do fail. Like I can imagine that people kind of feel similar about panic rooms as they do about fallout shelters as well. It's like these are extra assurances for people who they're not sure that they're ever going to need anything like this, but in essence, you are trapped if it does not work,
Yeah.
right? Like you talked about that before and how this this movie kind of like just perfectly captures that. And it's like it's not lost on me also that this is in essence also like men versus women too, right? Like how these three men are trying to break into this panic room with these two women in it,
Yeah.
like a woman and a girl for that matter.
Well, and also the fact that she's divorced and she doesn't have the security of a man around. And even when he does get involved, he's no help.
No, he's
And
he's
like
definitely
it's such an interesting dynamic. And I love the mother-daughter elements as well.
Mhm.
Kristen Stewart gives a great performance as a young actor. And the likes of Jodie Foster, Forrest Whitaker, Dwight Yoakam, I think they elevate the material
Well, and then
from their performances.
and that's kind of where full circle it comes, where you say performance and director kind of make
Yep.
this, because like the writing in this is nothing special.
Well,
It's
and to be frank, it probably could have been even a little leaner.
oh, I'm sure it could.
Like, I feel like I didn't mention that about the game either. That probably could have been a little leaner too, because that was a 2 hour, 9 minute movie. This is at least under 2 hours, but like this could have easily been like 100 minutes. Like this is the type of thing that seem like this screams I should be 90 minutes and be like a nice light thriller.
Well, because also it's it's something that Fincher does so well, is just making you sit in tense moments
Yeah,
for extended periods of time. Like, but that's something that both of these movies have something in common, is that Fincher just knows how to make atmosphere just so well in all of his movies. And whatever the
absolutely.
atmosphere is, whether but like tense is like
Yeah,
something that he's just so unbelievably good at. And with something with something like this, the tension also kind of is amplified a little bit because it feels claustrophobic, just like it does in
very
that.
claustrophobic. And this this home is so interesting
Mhm,
as like a structure and how it's all set up. And they have a couple of really great moments, like when they're trying to get to the panic room for the first time and get in. Like that whole situation of them all colliding
mhm.
towards the front door. And then when she has to get out to try to get stuff, there's so many thrilling moments involved with that. But yeah, there's some shocking elements, and this crew, this trio are not all on the same page, and
Mhm.
um people don't make it out okay
No,
in
no,
some of these situations.
they do not.
And there are some, like, I know he calls this one a movie, but there are some interesting themes that kind of get layered in terms of that control and that dynamic with these men intruding upon her safety and all those types of things. It's a thrilling film, and it's a really incredibly well crafted film. And I think that really
Mhm.
elevates it for sure.
Yeah. It's crazy that something like this also could potentially be like a director's like middle of the pack, like upper tier for a different director. But for someone like Fincher, this also kind of just to me feels very early, and for somebody who's still trying to figure some things out.
This feels like this could be the best film in so many people's filmographies, which
Mhm.
is kind of crazy that this is considered one of his more middling types of efforts. But it's like this is the man who made Seven, Fight Club, Social Network, Gone Girl. So like
He's got a type. He's definitely got a type of film, and it's crazy that this new generation of filmmakers that we have now, that your Spielbergs, your Lucas,
yeah,
your all of them. It's not like they're out by any means, but like I feel like there's a stronger contingent of people who's looking for something a little bit more substance, like
Mhm.
looking for more substance out of their movies or their film or their moving pictures or what have you. And I'm just glad that like Fincher is around, along with like your Nolans, your Denis Villeneuve, those
I think
people.
him and PTA have a very interesting parallel from like the 90s
Mhm.
more independent movement into the 2000s. But he worked at ILM in the early 80s, which that's crazy that he worked at Industrial Light and Magic. And then he made so many commercials and music videos over the years, and he finally broke through.
Yeah.
So good for David Fincher and good for Panic Room. This is a real rock solid thriller that has plenty of thrills to throw at your way. But Mike, do you have any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
Nope. Just again, David Fincher knows how to make great tense movies, and even if these are both kind of like middle of the road, lower tier, that's still like that's still pretty good. And
Still pretty good.
yeah,
So there you go. But that is a wrap on another episode of the Wasteland Retrospective. Next week, Luke and I are going to be diving into Forbidden Planet and the 1953 War of the Worlds. And next month, Mike and I are going to be diving into a couple of 90s video game adaptations in time for Super Mario Brothers Galaxy. It is Super Mario Brothers from the early 90s and the 90s Mortal Kombat movie, not Annihilation. We don't talk about that. But like I said, thank you all for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. What is your favorite Fincher film? Make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. The SPDM Crew Podcasting Network is ever expanding. There's so many shows with all different types of interests, especially movies. And if you're interested in being a guest on a show like this, or to be part of the crew and you have an idea for your own podcast, reach out to us on our website. And if you like our logo, check out HiFlyer Creative for all your digital marketing needs. But most importantly, thank you as always for supporting the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.